And welcome to our live edition of Market Wrap. I'm still in Philly. I stayed late this week just to bring you this live show because not only is it Watches and Wonders this week, but it's also Masters Week. Sunday is going to be awesome, hanging with my boys, my father-in-law, watching the Masters. It's going to almost feel normal again. So as most of you know already, Watches and Wonders launched this week on Wednesday. I was at the office at 6 a.m. waiting for Rolex to pop up, and we've spent the last few days trying to digest everything that was released. But before we get into the product, let's take a step back and remind everyone how we got here. So traditionally in the watch world, the Basel Fair was the biggest watch show in the world, taking place in the middle of March or April, and all the brands would save their novelties for the year, and we would make the annual pilgrimage to the small town of Basel, Switzerland. So it all started in 1917. The Swiss held a crafts fair with cheese, clock, and watchmakers, all gathered together to show their wares. In 1931, they created a special section just for watches. And then in 1973, they expanded participation from all of Europe. Now, 1986, they went global, and the fair really exploded. And in 2003, they renamed it to Basel World. Now, back in the early 90s, I think it was 1991, 4 brands, Baume & Mercier, Genta, Daniel Roth, and Piaget, left Basel to show privately in Geneva. Quickly, other brands followed and left Basel, and then SIHH was born, which was again a separate show, all including the Richemont brands. They renamed it to Watches and Wonders in 2019. Now, fast forward to 2020, COVID hits, Basel 2020 gets canceled, and now Rolex, Patek, Tudor, Breitling all leave Basel World. They join Watches and Wonders for 2021, and now we have a virtual event comprising 40 brands. So now, our first multi-brand, multi-group virtual show. Now, over the last few weeks, maybe a month, I've expressed some concerns on how we're really going to manage 40 brands releasing at one time. I think some of my concerns came true. It's been a huge amount of information to digest at one time. So today, I'm going to limit my reviews to some of the major brands and only some specific standouts. I'm intentionally going to keep Patek and Rolex to the end, so you'll have to put up with me for a little while until we get to the juicy stuff. So my favorite Richemont brand, I think as most people know, is Lange. So Lange & Son did not disappoint. We saw 3 very cool new models. Now the first one is an entirely new watch. It's the Lange 1 Perpetual. You can see it on the screen there, absolutely beautiful. Now I've been predicting a new Lange Perpetual for months. They came through in flying colors. So not only did they do a Perpetual, but they did it in the Lange 1 style, based on the Daymatic movement, a full-size automatic winder replacing the micro rotor, 41.9 millimeters, perfect size I love. And they did 2 amazing color versions, a rose gold gray dial, and then they did a limited edition white gold pink dial where the dial's actually pink gold. Only 150 examples of these will be made. I love colored dials in Lange. This piece is going to quickly sell out. Now the second piece they did was a little Lange 1 moon phase. It's a new size, 36.8 millimeters, comes with a solid silver dial with dark blue gold flux and little stars. It is absolutely gorgeous dial. It's a beautiful little watch. Again, not my size, not my style per se, but I really appreciate this one. It's beautiful. And the last major introduction for Lange was the triple split. They did a triple split a couple of years ago. This version is rose gold, has a beautiful blue dial, limited to 100 pieces. I think we've all seen that Lange has been gaining traction in the secondary market. This is just going to add fuel to the fire. Now, as of late, my second favorite Richemont brand has become Vacheron Constantin. They came out with a number of great introductions this year. Now, the first of which is the Overseas Perpetual Ultra Thin and the Ultra Thin Skeleton, in both examples in steel. It's a great expansion of their hottest collection. I love the blue dials. Overseas of all generations have been on a steady rise in the last year. I really think adding these kind of higher end, beautiful limited edition pieces is going to draw more attention to the entire collection. Now, they also brought out a 100-year anniversary of the 1921. They did a platinum version, 40 millimeters, really cool full platinum dial, excellent piece. And then the last one I saw was the 42.5 millimeter Traditional split-second chrono. Now, Vacheron does high watchmaking as well as anybody. They've kind of been overlooked for the last few years. I think we're going to see them really climb their way back into the upper echelon of the watch market. Now next we're going to touch quickly on IWC. I've always been a big fan of IWC, and they came out with a couple of great intros in new sizes. So the first is a Big Pilot. Now Big Pilot was a cool, iconic watch, but it was huge and hard to wear sometimes. So I loved it, but 48 millimeters with that onion crown. So now we have a new introduction, 43 millimeters, both a black dial and a blue dial, both with straps and bracelets, absolutely beautiful pieces. They also came out with a 43 millimeter Perpetual calendar, under 30,000. This is an awesome piece. That's gonna be the one to get, I think. We're also looking at a new Pilot Chrono. Got updated with this cool green dial, strap and bracelet, 41 millimeter size, and the best part, coming with a new quick release system. So you can change from the bracelet to the strap, makes it real easy to go back and forth. Super desirable, love that piece. Now, the other piece they came out with, I was not such a big hit on, it's the Big Pilot shock absorber. Now, if I want to drop it off a third-story building, this is the watch to have, but not really the most attractive one I saw them launch. Now, Tudor is a brand that we've really talked about a lot in the last couple of years. They came out with a new Black Bay Chrono, a silver dial, a black dial, both on straps and bracelets, 41 millimeters, great classic snowflake hand, awesome pieces. They'll do really well. But the two surprises from Tudor were first a Black Bay 58 in 18 karat gold, 39 millimeters, green bezel, a whole new price point for Tudor, 16,800, but a gorgeous green dial, green bezel. I think that's going to be a great piece for them. And the last piece, really big surprise, and probably the hit for them, is the Black Bay 58, but in 925 sterling silver. Now, we haven't seen a sterling silver case watch from almost anybody in a long time. It's got a great taupe dial, bezel. The case is absolutely gorgeous. I actually got to see this watch in person today because Tudor is the best of new releases. They literally launch them the next day. It is gorgeous in person, something you're really going to want to take a look at. Panerai, next stop up, new collection of watches, E-Steel. Blue dial, green dial, gray dial in the new Luminor. Kind of cool. I like the fact that they've kind of tripled down on recycled materials. They did recycled titanium. My pal Thanos here calls it trash-tanium. I'm not sure how important recycled steel is in the scheme of the environmental world, but I'm sure my son Matthew will be thrilled to see recycled materials in these watches. The last piece that I really loved was a new Bronzo. Now, the thing that made it special was it's 42 millimeters. I love the 42 millimeter subs. I think it's a great size for a new Bronzo, gorgeous blue dial. I think we'll do really well with that piece. And now for the big boys. So Patek Philippe, obviously everybody was waiting to see what they did. They did introduce a new and final 5711 1A in steel, olive dial, incredible response. They also did a 5711 13A, basically the same watch, but with a baguette bezel and in steel and an olive dial. Not something you see steel with diamonds from Patek. It's going to be super rare, super collectible. And as I also called a few weeks ago, I'm going to say I got this one right, a new 5990 1R, but I didn't see this blue dial coming. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is probably going to be one of the best pieces of the show. Now, everybody was expecting a lot more from Patek, and lo and behold, on their website today, they are having a second intro next week, April 12th, 2 p.m. Geneva time. They're showing a nice little flat tray, so I'm thinking it's strap models. Maybe a new Calatrava, 6119, new annual calendar, 6146, maybe a new 6270. We'll be back next week to see. And of course, I'm saving the best for last, Rolex. Now, there was more buzz this year about Rolex than probably any other brand. They did come out with some new things, but probably not what people were expecting. So the first new piece we saw was a new Explorer, but in 36 millimeters. So this is a kind of a step back to the original Explorer. They did a steel and gold version, which I think is really cool. And now they have a new old school style, but the new Oyster Lock band, new chromolite display. This has also now caused a run on the 39 Explorers. We've had more calls on those in the last 2 days than almost anything. Now, everybody was expecting a new Explorer 2, and yes, Rolex did come out with a new Explorer 2. And yes, in typical fashion, they basically left the watch unchanged. There's no ceramic bezel, there's no green hand, there's no green crystal, just basically a new movement and new chromonite luminous. This actually has now caused the previous version, which had really spiked in the last few weeks, to kind of drop back to a little bit more of reality. I think this will be a good piece, but I don't think it's really the groundbreaking piece a lot of people were looking for. Now, there's a lot of other things out there, so let's start with some new dials. The Datejust 36 came out with a whole new series of a green palm. It is really cool, it's beautiful. Some people have already taken to call it the weed dial, but the star of the show was not a whole new Daytona, as a lot of people were speculating, but a meteorite version of the existing model. It is drop dead gorgeous, comes white gold, rose gold, yellow gold, oyster flex straps, and also on the bracelet. The yellow gold bracelet is just, I think, one of the prettiest watches in the show. Now, the biggest news that a lot of people missed was the return of Batman. It is my favorite Rolex. Now the BLNR and the BLRO are both available with oyster bracelets. So this was, one of the most iconic GMTs. I love the oyster bracelet personally. I really think we're going to see a drop down in demand for Batgirls and Pepsi Jubilees, as many clients that certainly I know will want to trade into the new oyster. The other change we made is they added the Jubilee bracelet option to the Sky Dweller family. Most people, again, haven't seen this. It kind of went under the radar, but they do make it now in steel and gold. Now, my sleeper Rolex release that you probably won't hear about anywhere else is Eisenkiesel. What? Eisenkiesel? Yes, Eisenkiesel, a new stone dial. It's a ferruginous quartz dial that translates to iron quartz. It is amazing. It's the first stone dial they've done in the 40 millimeter size. It's going to be amazing. It's super rare. It is one of the coolest releases that nobody's talking about. Well, I'm starting to run out of gas here. Well, we certainly will be back next week. There'll be more announcements. There'll be more scheduled releases coming out next week. And we'll be back to our regular scheduled market wrap on Tuesday. And we'll also have CQ from Dubai on that show, giving us the kind of report from the Middle East. And then please remember to join us on Clubhouse, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll do a longer discussion of all the intros. So that's our live market wrap. Thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next week.